Alright guys, welcome back to another video where today we're going to be taking a look at every single one of our African cichlid grow-out aquariums, starting with these little blue neons. We're going to talk about filtration, decoration, lids, lack of substrate, and everything else that goes into growing out these awesome fish. So let's take a look. Alright, so the first thing we're going to talk about when growing out African cichlids is a lack of substrate. And I've toyed with this for quite a while because I've always liked using the sand substrate, as obviously it's sandy at the bottom of Lake Malawi, but for growing out fish it just helps you keep the tank cleaner if there's no substrate down there. So you don't have to gravel vac, you can just straight up start a siphon and get all the waste, uneaten food and detritus out of the tank when you need to. So pretty much it just makes maintenance easier, and trust me, when you've got 4, 5, 6, 7 tanks that are all growing out fish, you don't want to be gravel vacuuming them. You just want to get your water changes done as quick as you possibly can. The next thing we're going to talk about is decorations in the tank. When fish are really young, like these Alunacara Stuart Granty blue neons that you see here, I prefer to have quite a lot of cover in the tank, whether that's through fake decorations like you see here, or the rock toward the right hand side of the screen now, just so they can have places to hide and chill away from each other, because some of them are definitely way more shy than others. However, as they then start to get bigger, I prefer to have less decorations in the tanks, and that's what you're seeing here with the 55 gallon that's got the jello reefs and Lawandas in. As you can see, this tank only has sponge filters in. The sponge filters do help in terms of breaking the line of sight for the fish when they do get aggressive, but without any decorations in there, it's just easier to clean. Obviously, the bigger the fish become, the more waste they produce, and if there's less things for you to move around in the tank as you're cleaning it, the easier it is for you. So it's all about ease of maintenance on this one. The next component that we're going to talk about when growing out African cichlids is filtration. There's multiple different types of filtration that you can use, whether you want to use sponge filters like I'm using in the majority of my grow out tanks. You could also use canister filters as long as the flow isn't too much, especially when the cichlid fry are very young, as you obviously don't want them getting sucked into the intake. And same goes with hang on the back fillers. So personally, when you're growing out very small African cichlids, I would say sponge filters are the best. They're also the most economical, and they're also the simplest. So if you're planning on growing out many African cichlids and planning on having multiple tanks, sponge filters for me is the way to go. Just be prepared to gravel vac or vacuum the bottom if you end up doing a bare bottom tank, only because the suction in the sponge filters isn't quite the same as a hang on the back or a canister, so you might need to vacuum up waste and detritus a little bit more often when you're using sponge filters. Also, make sure that you wring out the sponge filters every week or two in obviously dechlorinated water, so you don't harm the beneficial bacteria that's gathered within the sponge filter, and that should really help keep the nitrates down in your tank, which in turn will help those little suckers grow. The next component that you're going to want to think about when you're growing out fish is the temperature of the tank. African cichlids can survive in a wide range of temperatures, although in my personal opinion, they prefer to be between 76 and 80 degrees. I personally keep mine at around 77, although if you have the temperature of the tank a little hotter, you might be able to feed them a little bit more often, just because that increases their metabolism. However, with that and with that extra feeding comes the need for extra water changes and extra maintenance on your part. So if you do that, make sure you're prepared to do that extra work. Next thing we're going to talk about, a really simple subject, and that's food. Basically, you just want to make sure that the food that you're feeding your African cichlids is a good, high quality food for that specific type of fish. Obviously, if you're breeding Mbuna, you're not going to be wanting to feed them bloodworms. Just like if you're growing out and breeding Haplochromis, you're not going to be wanting to feed them something that's really high in spirulina. It would actually be the opposite. But you guys know what I mean by that. And if you don't, have a little think and do a little bit of research into the subject, and you'll be able to find out the specific needs of your fish when it comes to their dietary requirements. Having said that, obviously I breed a Lunacara and grow out a Lunacara, and the foods that I feed are Northfin, New Life Spectrum, and Cobalt Supercolour Flakes, although I also recently did Omega-1 Supercolour Flakes, although I've not fed those in a while just because I simply ran out. So if you happen to breed and grow out a Lunacara just like I do, you're in luck when it comes down to the food department, and I've left links to all those products down in the description, so feel free to check them out if you'd like. So now we're on to the sixth and the final tip, which is almost like a double whammy. The first one is water changes, and plenty of them. The second one is patience. Water changes are especially good when you're trying to grow out any sort of fish, especially African cichlids, because they'll basically grow at a faster rate the cleaner your water is. And for the most part, that's relating to nitrates and ammonia. Water changes obviously help rid your tank of those nitrates that can sometimes become quite high in African cichlid tanks when they are densely stocked. So if you can bring those nitrates down with those water changes, the fish for the most part are going to grow way better. And that's why you see some big time breeders using massive vats when they're growing out fish, because the volume of water in those vats is obviously way higher than what a 20-gallon long would be that I'm using. But I try and combat that with frequent water changes. So right now I'm doing about 50% twice a week, and at minimum 50% once a week, just to dilute those nitrates and hopefully get the fish growing a little faster. However, going on to the next one and talking about patience. Patience is key whenever you're growing out fish. There's no miracle or special food or water that's going to make your fish grow any quicker. You've just got to have patience, keep doing your thing. As KG Tropical says, do your job. Make sure that you're taking care of the little things, and the fish will grow in their own time and become stunning males, or big, holding females, which isn't a terrible thing either. Anyway guys, hope you've enjoyed these 6 tips on how to grow out African cichlids. If you learned anything new, please leave this video a like, drop us a comment, let me know what you think to the video and the tips. If you've got any other tips that you'd want to include, drop them down in the section. Let's all help each other out as breeders and African cichlid lovers. And we'll leave you with some B-roll of the 125, where these fish have done a lot of the growing out and have now turned into some rather striking males. So let's take a look. See you on the next one.